There we are. Polar versus James on Yansu. This is our Diamond League match. Both players are indeed Diamond League on NA. And with that replay loading, I'll switch scenes over there and get right into it. So, spawning in our upper right location for Team Composite, we have James playing as our Yellow Terran. And spawning in the lower left, we have Polar playing for Team Unrivaled Gaming as our Blue Protoss. This is a Diamond League match, so we're going to see pretty high level play here. A lot of our Diamond League players are pretty good in the Chobo Team League. For those of you unfamiliar with the Chobo Team League, it's a team-based format for players anywhere from bronze to diamond. You can go to choboteamleague.com or choboteamleague.enjin.com for more information. Our format is pretty similar to the Pro League format, except that we go to a best of 9 rather than their best of 5. And our ace match is actually a best of 3 between 2 diamond players. All matches are played every week because the matches can be played in whatever order the players want to. The matchups come out at the beginning of the week and the players can arrange whatever time they want to play during the week. So we see a bunker coming up before gas here for James, so we're probably going to see oh, there's the gas. So we are going to see that typical Reaper opening out of our Terran player, whereas we see a gateway opener out of Polar. In the meantime, Polar sending across a probe to scout. Pretty typical scout timing there, so probably not going to be seeing any cheese like we did last game. But you never know. Would also be about the right time to start setting up for a proxy Stargate or something, but for the moment, just using that probe to scout. Runs across an SCV that seems to be also being sent out to scout. And sees pretty typical stuff. Evidence of that Reaper opening. In the meantime, the SCV has now arrived at the Protoss base and sees, well, nothing out of the ordinary. Only one gas. Cybercore just finishing up. Everything looking pretty normal for our players on both sides of the map so far. Adding on a reactor to that first barracks. Second CC getting built on the low ground. Second Nexus just thrown down for Polar, right as that first Reaper arrives. Thought the mothership core is out to chase down that Reaper. Actually prevents the Reaper from scouting much. But the only thing that's really new from when the SCV was there is in fact the second base, which the Reaper did see. If the Reaper's gonna possibly try to jump in again, nah, he's just hanging out up here. Probably gonna head home. So no factory yet out of our Terran player, so we're not gonna probably see, say, opening Hellion Harass or anything like that. Just going right into Marine production and down a bunker in front of that second base. In the meantime, the Reapers decided it's time to go back into the Protoss base. Looks like he might actually get a probe before the mothership core can get over there, and he does. So that one probe kill is the first kill of the game. First blood, as they'd say over at Base Trade TV. The Reaper escaping completely unscathed, not even having taken any hits from that mothership core, deciding to jump out. In the meantime, there was a stalker kind of up there to poke at that bunker a little, but discovered Marines in it and pulled back with only having lost some shields. Robo coming down for our Protoss player. So we're almost certainly going to see those Colossi come out as quick as he can manage. And the Reaper does scout the Robo's existence. Coming back in and continuing to be annoying. No more kills, but hey, at least you still got a good scout off. And he escapes just barely. So that Reaper's still being worth its weight in gold for scouting information. In the meantime, we do see that robotics bay coming right down for our Protoss player, so we are going to see Colossi pretty much as soon as possible, pushing out an observer first out of the robotics facility. Stim coming down for our Terran player. And finally added a tech lag to one of his bunkers, as well as a few more bunkers on the way, so we're looking at some really heavy Marine play coming out of our Terran player. Not always the best when you're facing off against a Colossus-based build. Maybe a lot better off to be, say, building Marauders instead of all those Marines, but I'm sure he plays Terran a lot better than I do, though. That observer headed across the map, gonna see what he can see over at the Terran base. Reaper still just hanging out, his health refilled, possibly gonna go in for another scout. In the meantime, that stim pack is about, well, still 50 seconds away, so. And combat shield and concussive shells have been started, as well as +1 weapons for our Terran player. Still no upgrade aids of any sort for our Protoss player. Not even having taken extended thermal lance for those Colossi on the way. First Colossus is going to be out pretty soon, and there's extended thermal lance being started, but that's the only upgrade we're seeing out of our Protoss player so far. In the meantime, that Reaper's back in to annoy some probes. He does get another probe kill, but he finally loses his life to that stalker. Evening up our resources lost tab to still not very much at the 930 mark. No real early aggression at all. So it looks like our Terran player is going to be moving out, using that timing with +1 attack at combat shields and stim, but this has been sighted by that observer that was hanging out above the army, so Polar does know exactly what's coming for him. Putting down some more pylons so he can warp in the reinforcements right on top of this engagement that no doubt is about to happen at the Protoss natural base. James throwing down a scan, seeing what he can see. I think it looks like he's backing off for a little bit, maybe not liking seeing that Colossus, having no real answer to it. 4 Marauders is the closest thing he's gotten as an answer to that Colossus, and it's not really a very good answer. But no, he chooses to stim forward and start charging the army. Hits a few zealots. Photon overcharge is thrown off. In the meantime, we see his first medevacs on the way back home, and making a whole lot more Marauders, having switched into a much more Marauder-heavy composition with what he's seen on his opponent's side. In the meantime, those exchanges went notably better for Polar than they did for James. Little tiny skirmishes, and we also see him starting to scout out using his factory as an overlord, which makes perfect sense if he's not going to use it for anything else. Already got his Stargate. +1 armor on the way for our Terran player, and our Protoss player has finally added on those upgrades. It's about a minute from completing 1-1. So those stalkers have discovered the factory overlord and decided that it will not be allowed to scout very much. However, that factory overlord probably is going to at least be able to see this third base being morphed in. Yep, he will scout the third base's existence with this factory before it goes down, but it's already almost done. In the meantime, we have a drop coming in from our Terran player. Pretty much nothing to defend it but one Stalker. One Stalker is not enough to defend this drop. Warping in units right on top of the drop. Not the best of idea as they pretty much go down for free. However, they do delay enough for the main army to move in and start to deal with this drop. A few probes are lost, and the drop is picked back up as the main army arrives. See, how many probes did he get there? He's up to 7 total worker kills. I think 3 or 4 of them were from the Reaper earlier, though, so I think he got 3 or 4 worker kills in that. In the meantime, we've seen a move out across the map for our Terran player, and that drop is going to come back down. There are remnants of that drop harassed force from earlier coming back down. One of the Colossi was left, but a lone Colossus isn't really very good and just falls down as our Terran player picks up a Colossus for free. In the meantime, moving forward with this army. Now, that probe that was holding the watchtower did scout the army's existence, but that army is going to take down this third base because the Protoss army is out of position to try to be able to defend it. Whole Protoss army traveling together and trying to defend against 2 things at once isn't working out very well. They do get a snipe on that Nexus and start walking home. In the meantime, James is putting down his 3rd CC, so things are looking a little bit better for James than they are for Polar at this point. Using the mobility of his army and his drop harass to deal with the fact that he has no real answer to those Colossi yet. But with only 2 Colossi with the army and the number of Marauders that James has been adding on, with a good stim, he could even probably take the army straight. And we have a first few Vikings coming out for James to help more against those Colossi. So Polar has used a mass recall here. I'm not sure if I really like that decision. He probably could have been just as good walking them all home. Just waste some Mothership Core energy, in my opinion, and then immediately starts walking back out across the map with that army. In the meantime, we see another full medevac coming down to probably try to deny this 3rd once more for James. Yep, medevac boosting in and sees the Stalkers and chooses to drop a little bit out of their view. Looks like Polar's more interested in his attack on James's 3rd and wasn't watching the micro those Stalkers as they go down to this Terran force, which looks like they are going to be able to cancel this 3rd and perhaps get a probe or 2. No, the probes are able to escape, but another one still rallied over here. Now 3 Zealots warping in to try to clean up this force, and yeah, the main army of Polar is now arriving to force this to pick up. Only 1 Marauder remains, but the medevac at least gets away. So both players being able to secure their 3rd base for the moment. Even though James has a pretty good supply lead, the armies are probably pretty similar in strength, as Colossus are, especially without that many Vikings to deal with them, usually worth more than their weight in supply. So things are looking pretty even for me at the moment. That medevac's still hanging out in the corner. And the army's going to pass by each other. Oh, but this one Colossus behind the army tells the tale and is lost for free as James's troops stem forward to take a full engagement with this Protoss army. Second Colossus goes down to the Vikings as mass recalls used a few Stalkers left behind, but that was one heck of an engagement for James. Army stimming across the map to try to get to that 3rd base quickly. Continue their fight. More reinforcements following behind, as well as those Vikings. Gonna wait up and heal up a moment before assailing. Looks like he's probably gonna attack into the natural. Well, he could attack either the natural or the 3rd, and it looks like he's going to attack the 3rd, which is where the main army is. Photon overcharge is thrown off, but there may just be way too much Terran here as Zealot after Zealot falling pretty much for free. Photon Overcharge doing some work, but there's a whole lot of Protoss here. The Vikings even landing to help as they can with all the Colossus being gone, and with no AoE. This may well go the way of our Terran player. Looks like he is starting to fall over, though, perhaps overstimming his troops. He is going to get the Nexus, though. And the Protoss army is completely decimated, down to 18 army supply. Now, one of those things is a Colossus, which is going to be able to nail these overstimmed troops pretty quick, but it has no support. So the Terran army does go down, other than the Medivacs, as our Protoss player literally has no way left to shoot up in his army. But, all in all, that engagement went much better for James than it did for Polar. James continuing to build more Marines and Marauders, and Polar not being able to remax nearly as quickly, down to 22 army supply compared to James's 57. Looks like James is going to keep the pressure on, as I would expect. Now, Polar is going to finish Psionic Storm and is getting his first High Templars out there. That should be very helpful, especially if James continues his habit of overstimming his troops a bit, because overstimmed troops go down really quick to a storm or two. Oh, so you've seen Polar play before. That's awesome, Bessie. Good to know, man. It looks like James is heading in here, a small force, including the Medivacs, coming into the natural, poking in a little. The rest of the force all joins up. Those Vikings still staying landed as the troops move forward. Yep, that's the end. GG, well played from Polar, as James takes this one for Team Composite Gaming. So that brings our score back even 2-2 in this series between Team Unrivaled and Team Composite.